All right. How's everybody doing? Welcome to the Saturday Know Your Gear Live QA. I've brought Ralph with me.
What up?
And want to make a few announcements before we get started. So hopefully I see a bunch of you already on here. And let's make sure that we are actually broadcasting. Everything's fine. It's showing good on my end. So let's see. All right. So a couple announcements. First, I'd like to say thank you to Micah, the artistic autistic. He took me up on my t-shirt trade. So he sent me this amazing t-shirt, and I'm going to send him one of mine. He's an amazing channel. I've enjoyed it immensely, and I'd like to also point out, boy, he's kind of shown me a thing or two. I need to up my game. His packaging and everything with his shirt was amazing, right? In fact, I'm going to send you some stuff besides my shirt to make up for it, because your shirt's way nicer than my shirt. It was really, really nice. I liked everything. Your packaging, like I said, it was really cool. So I really want to thank you for that. And thank you for all the kind words you said in your emails to you and your father. It's really, really nice. Like I said, so I'll wear it proudly often. So thank you so much again. Okay, so let's get into some questions. Me and Ralph are here so we can field even more questions than normally, hopefully. And you guys can see me okay, right? Because somebody just said, when are you going to show up? I'm like, we're here.
Yeah, we are here.
We are here. Okay.
I mean, I did check. We are definitely here.
Vintage 6-string said, I snagged 3 more shirts before you hit 100,000. It's going to be next. It sounds like it's going to be next week. Yeah, it could be next week. Could be anytime. You know what happens is it goes up and down. So we were trending for the 10th of July, and now it was trending for the 2nd of July, and now it looks like we're back to trending to the 6th or 7th. We don't know. But like I said, once that happens, there will be no more the Know Your Gear shirts as you know them. They'll be retired. So, and thank you everyone for supporting me on that deal. It's been really helpful, and it's been really overwhelming. I hope you understand that, because it's been cool. So let's get into questions, unless you have any announcements. Do you have any announcements?
I don't have any announcements. The podcast.
Oh, yeah, the podcast. So if you guys notice, we've been doing the podcast. We did our second one. We're waiting. A lot of you have reached out and said, hey, what about iTunes? iTunes is approving our podcast, and we don't know how long that takes. So once they approve it, all we got is an email from iTunes saying, once it's approved, it can go uploaded. So they're there.
You submitted, what, Monday night or Sunday?
Yeah, we submitted. It's been a while.
So it's been almost a week now, but we did submit it to iTunes. So a lot of guys wanted it on iTunes, so we're waiting.
We're waiting. So as soon as they approve it, it's on. So, okay, so let's grab some questions.
First question.
Okay.
By Eric.
Okay.
I can't pronounce Eric's last name.
That's fine.
What do you think about the 50s tribute Les Paul by Gibson?
So that's a tough question, because what do I think of the price? What do I think of overall? It's cool. I've played some real 50s Les Pauls, right, including the Max copies as well, and it feels legitimate to what they are. I don't hate that neck. I like that chunky neck sometimes. My 594 PRS has the same kind of huge, chunky neck. I like it. There's a rare Les Paul out there that I own one of them, where the neck is not the 60s thin neck and the slim taper neck, and it's not the 50s neck. It's right in the middle, and that's the Les Paul I prefer. But you have a Paul Reed Smith single cut. It has a thick neck.
Yeah.
So do you like the thicker necks?
I like him up to a certain point. It's just, I always feel like whenever they do, I don't care who does it, when they do the 50s, 60s reissues, the necks never feel right to me. So I'm not crazy on that reissue type stuff. But that's just personal preference on the neck.
Right. It's just a preference of the neck. So I dig the guitar, if that helps. Philip wants to know, do you think the Blues Deluxe takes overdrives well? Absolutely. I think the Blues Deluxe is a fantastic amp. It's like the Hot Rod Deluxe. The Blues Deluxe aesthetically, I'm partial. I like the tweed, and I like a couple of things that the Blues Deluxe offers that over the Hot Rod Deluxe. Both amps are fantastic. And like I said, they're my true blue. Like, if I was ever in a situation where I was going to show up somewhere and play with some friends or play a show, and somebody said, hey, what amp for the backline? I think a Hot Rod Deluxe and Blues Deluxe would be the safest bet for me because I know how it's going to take my pedals. And I have a better answer than that even, and then you can chime in.
Okay.
Does it take pedals well? Yes. And a lot of times the next question is, what do you mean by takes pedals well? And what I mean by that is, does it sound good with pedals, and especially a variety of different pedals? And yes, some amps make pedals sound fuller and bigger, and adds to their essence, right? And I think those amps do that well. Some amps, when you put in pedals, the amp which was already pleasing sounding becomes less pleasing. So, I guess when I say takes pedals well, I mean if you take the amp and you take the pedals, now you have a better sound. Where some amps and pedals combined, they're better just apart from each other. So
yeah, and I'm gonna agree. I think with the Blues Deluxe and the Hot Rod Deluxe, they both start off in a very good clean channel, which I think is the hardest thing to do, is to have that nice clean channel. They have the drive, which they break up nice, but when you start putting that pedal in front of it, it's a clean slate it starts off on. So you only build up from there.
Yes. Ryan, I'm sure it's Ryan because it's RNA Music and in the heart of Texas. He asked, what are you live streaming with? Is it MacBook? Yeah, it's the new MacBook Pro, and it's the newest edition, and an iRig Studio microphone is what I'm using. I've tried a bunch of things. This seems to work the best. I want to upgrade, or I've thought about, actually not want to. I've upgraded the camera a few times with some other outside external cameras, and I didn't get great results. So this has been great for not only streaming a clear picture, but without the hiccups. So I don't want any hiccups. So.
Oh, here's a good question. We were talking about this last week.
Okay.
Kenny Dave asked, are electric guitar sales down?
They are down. They're absolutely down. And this is aside from that whole article and stuff. The electric guitar sales are down.
And they've been down since 2008.
Yeah, they've been down for a while. But right. Yeah. But there's another thing, and I was talking to my wife this morning about it, and me and her have coffee and talk gear sometimes. I don't know if she loves that, but she does it. Also, but I want to put that out there. They are down, but I also like to put why I think they're down. Which is different than a lot of the theories out there. I think they're down because they were never supposed to be as high as they were, right? And what I mean by that is, I think manufacturers like Fender and Gibson and Ibanez and everybody, that I can think of, overproduced product. They made too many varieties of guitars, too many guitars, right? And they had a vehicle that they don't have anymore, which was they could overload their dealer network. Right? Yes. So when you hear things like this, these are true, by the way, and not rumors. This is a fact. When you hear Gibson and Fender mandate how many products a dealer is going to take by putting weight on them to say you're going to buy these products, and then you're going to buy the new products when they come out.
And all the accessories that go with it.
Right. And then us as guitar gear, players, when we go into music stores and you see those guitars just rotting in those stores, right? You would never walk into an appliance store and see a 2014 dishwasher still hanging around, right? Appliance stores, most stores know it's time to get the new product in. So when those manufacturers oversaturated those dealer networks with product, then they were boasting about great sales, but those sales weren't to us. They weren't to the end user. They were to the middle market. So the middle market got saturated. And the proof in that is Paul Reed Smith, Fender, and Gibson keep coming out with new versions of their old product so that they can help their dealer network sell the old product through. So that's my point. So yes, guitar sales are down, but maybe they need to be. So Justin said, congrats on 99,000 subscribers. Thank you. I appreciate that. What's your overall thoughts on the Yamaha desktop amps? So you're probably talking about the THR10s. Love them. They are my absolute favorite modeling amp. I've finally whittled down after playing them. I've been hanging out trying them in music stores lately. And the ones I'm interested in is the tan one I've decided I'm going to go with. So I'm buying, there's a black one, there's a green one, there's a tan one. They were all fantastic. The only complaint I have about them is that I wish they wouldn't have made 3 different ones because I'm not going to buy 3 and I'm not going to buy 2. I'm just going to buy 1. So I've decided to go with the tan one. So that's the one I'm getting.
Well, it kind of goes back to your comment about oversaturating the market with the guitars. Is they're doing the same thing with amps?
Yeah,
they make all these great amps, but they make so many different variations.
Right. There's no reason they couldn't have made one amp that does what all 3 of those amps do. So, especially with technology the way it is. But
and I say this while I'm looking around your room. And I'm looking at the other amps over here.
I'm trying to thin the market down of product. I'm trying to buy it also.
I mean, with those amps there, again, you got multiple amps, and again, there's more amps than those. So again, I think it's an oversaturation of the market where you can't feasibly expect a person to buy all 3 amps. I mean, understanding, no, let's give them the option, let them pick the one they want, but I feel like sometimes when they're going, well, here's 10 versions of the same amp.
Yes. The next one is Dylan. Dylan says, "Hey Phil, just bought an '87 American Strat for $1,000. What do you think of them? Congrats on 99,000 subscribers. Almost there. Yeah, almost there. You know what? First, Dylan, I just want to say a funny thing that Ralph doesn't even know. You guys might find interesting. You know, there's a little secret about YouTube if you don't know. When a YouTuber posts a video, every YouTuber, by the way, there's almost no exception to this. When I post a video, as soon as you post a video, 2 things happen. Your subscriber base drops. Right? The first thing that happens when you post a video is a bunch of people unsubscribe to you because they either got annoyed because they're sick of being notified that there's videos, or they just hate the video, or they don't, right? Maybe they feel like you've changed since last week, right? I don't know. No one really knows the exact theory, but it happens. So it's funny, as I post more videos, the subscriber rate drops and then it comes back up and then it drops. But it's really like a lose 10, get 15 kind of thing. So you keep moving up, but that's why when you look at your subscriber rate, it's a slow graph because you go up and you go down and go up, but you're always gaining, but it's small gains. Okay, so back to the '87 Strat. Yeah, I think everybody agrees that there is a sweet spot for Strats, right? And there's going to be slight variations of this theory, but my theory is, yeah, I think the 60s era Strats were amazing. That's why they command top dollar. The 70s era Strats were not amazing, but they're collectible and people like them, but they were not considered some of the amazing years. The early 80s ones are okay, and the late 80s ones is where the game came back again. The necks got a little thinner, the performance a little better. Especially up into the early 90s where you get into the Pro Series Strats, which were fantastic. And then it kind of loses a little bit of muster. To me, it came back exciting again in 2008. I think that was another great year for Fender and revising the Strats. And so an 87 Strat, I think, is fantastic. My experience with those late 80s, early 90s Strats is those necks are almost like magic. They're slightly thinner and faster than everything after them and before them. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic guitar. In fact, I think Fender has failed to recognize that as an era of necks that they should be focused on and bringing back. So any thoughts from you, Ralph, on that?
Oh, I dig them. You can definitely feel the difference in them too when you pick them up and play them from the modern Strat, even the Strats from the 90s. But you pick up one from the 80s, you can definitely feel that there's a difference in the guitar. So I got one here from for you.
Okay.
It's from Sander.
Okay.
I'm not sure if he's a colonel.
Okay.
Hey Phil, with all the gear you have, do you keep switching guitars amps when you sit down to play, or do you pick one guitar amp and play those for the rest of the evening?
Okay, so that's a fantastic question, and I think this is where I think a lot of people who collect a lot of gear will always agree. You generally will have. I always have one amp and one guitar that I play all the time. Okay.
You do?
And like one pedal. It's just there's just really this one piece of gear that I play all the time. And then whatever's new, you play that because you're excited about it for a while. And no, if I'm not specifically trying to get a sound or do something, no, I play one thing all the time. So I play, forever it was the copper Strat, and then now it's the blue Strat behind me. But ironically, they're set up the same way. It's those, a humbucker Strat for me is where I always gravitate with coil switching, coil splitting technology. So I can make it a single coil, make it a humbucker, it plays great. And then I play usually my Princeton or my 65 Deluxe reverb. Those are the 2 amps. So really, it's a Strat into a Fender amp. And it's a boring answer, but it's what I gravitate back to every time. And then and then whatever the flavor of the time is. So for me, and then Eric said, Eric Allen said, how do you like the Bogner Wessex? I took it back. I didn't keep it. I just took it back and I exchanged it and got the Pitchfork, which is a drop tune pedal like the whammy pedal. And to Eric, it's the pedal was very cool. It was a good pedal. I had owned it before. I decided to get it again. The switch still bugs me, that it feels broken. I don't like that feeling. And as soon as I got it and I posted that, my buddy Joe's like, oh, the 68's going to crush it. You know that, right? And he's right. The 68 pedal I thought was a little warmer and smoother. It was I returned it. So, but it was a good pedal. It just wasn't as good as my 68, and that switch bugs me. Let's see. Next question. Let's see. Okay, what do you got? We got one? What is it? Abriel De La Rosa says best strings and pickups for metal players.
Wow, you get that name. I couldn't pronounce the name. I was asking you actually to pronounce the name.
Yes. So best strings and pickups for metal players? Oh, easy. Strings, I think for metal, you want your strings to be bright. I really like the what's this? The two brands that come to mind when I think of that. And I'll give you three though. Obviously the Diodario XLs I think are great for metal players. I think the Ernie Ball, what are those strings? The Cobalts, right? The Cobalt strings, definitely cool for metal players. And I like the Progressives by GHS. Those are all very bright strings. But metal players, I think, to get the bite you need out of all that saturation you're going to be running, you want the strings to be bright and have great harmonic texture. So you want strings that are bright, made of brighter materials like stainless steel, not so much like nickel and softer materials. So I would stick with that. Pickups, high output pickups, right? It's metal.
And then what's weird though is I was waiting for you to say this because everything I've learned about metal is they're not running as much gain as we would think.
Right.
I remember an old article with Marty Freeman, big Marty Freeman fan, and it was during Cryptic Writings when that came out, and they were asking him about his amps and what his settings were, and he came out and he was actually running low gain because he goes the problem was it was with too much gain it just sounded muddy. So I think we associate when we're playing at home with metal as high gain, heavy distortion. But if you're in a band environment, if you're playing in a band, it's actually lower gain. Korn.
Yeah,
I remember
Korn.
They were running, gain was set to 3 or something like that?
Korn runs a low amount of gain because they're so down-tuned so much.
Yeah, so I think you got to play them. No, I like high output pickups myself, so I can't blame that. But I think the big thing is if you're at home playing, whatever you want to do with distortion and everything else like that, but if you're in a band environment, you're going to have to roll off the gain, kind of boost the mids a little bit.
I agree. Okay, 3 ones real fast. Charles Barner says, what's on your shirt? Charles, this is Micah. He's the artistic autistic. He started a channel. Him and his father sent me a great email saying, we like your channel. It inspired us to start a channel. And he's looks like an amazing kid. I enjoyed all the videos. He does art. He there's one where you watch him take his piano lesson, and it was just fantastic. And so he took me up on the trade deal. He sent this shirt to me, which is way better than my shirt in quality. It's just a great shirt.
Oh, yeah.
And we traded. So I'm going to give him one of my shirts and some stuff. The next one is from Hair Maiden. Says, what type of bands have you played in and their names? Me, I played in a bunch of bands. I was in a band called Solemn Creed, and it was definitely a heavy metal band, Pantera, Alice in Chains kind of thing. I played bass in that. Most of the bands I've been in have been bass. I spent a long time in a band called Phantom Charlie, which is an alternative, kind of strange band for sure, but I was a guitar player then. I was in a band called the Gospel Gangsters, which was a religious band that played at Pentecostal churches. Only thing worth mentioning was, I was the bass player, and, I was the odd man out in the band. He's laughing because he knows what I mean by that, if that makes any sense. But that was a fantastic band to be in, and that was everything from gospel music to rap music, right? Yeah. It was definitely, like I said, I'm a bass player. So as a bass player, I feel comfortable that I could pretty much, if you had a band and you needed me to jump in one night, I can probably go up on stage and just start playing. I'm very proficient at bass. Guitar, I need your set list and some time for sure. And so those are a few of the bands I've been in. I was in a country band. I forgot about that. I was in a country band. I used to work at Old Tucson Studios, if you know what that is, in Tucson, Arizona. They made a lot of the classic movies like Tombstone and a lot of John Wayne movies and stuff. And anyways, I played in a country band. I was bass player in a country band there for a long time. And I did a little guitar in the country band, but I went back to bass real fast. So, but yeah. So anything I love any kind of music that as a bass player.
All right, you ready for this one, Phil?
Sure.
This is from Running Pixels. And I'm asking this just because of the question. What do you think of licensed Floyd Rose equipped guitars?
They're not very good. The licensed Floyd system is all right. On Floyd Rose, not only do I think the German Floyd Roses are the best, I think older German Floyd Roses are the best. So all my guitars that have Floyd Roses, right? They are not only German, but they're the older ones, right? And everybody's going to have a different issue. Everybody's going to talk about, the point where they rest the steel, the plates, all this stuff. Me, it's the fine tuners. The new ones, to me, if you can't turn the fine tuner all the way down to the bottom and to the top easily, right? The new bridges, when I'm turning them and they get halfway down and it gets really tough, it's horrible. But they're not junk. That's not anywhere I'm close to saying this, right? What I'm just saying is yes. And if anyone asked me, and you're not asking me, but I'm going to tell you, should you upgrade a Floyd Rose to a German one? Absolutely, because keep the old one, put the real German one in there, enjoy that amazing guitar bridge, and then if you sell the guitar, put your old one back and take that next German bridge and put it in the next one. And what's great is I say almost because do everything with apprehension, but I highly recommend use German bridges. Go on eBay and Reverend and find somebody who's getting rid of the old German bridge, and if save a few bucks, get that. They're built to last forever. Okay, next one. Okay, here's a good one because it's going to be a tough question for me to answer, so I'm going to do it. I like it when you guys have really hard questions, and this one's hard. Guitar Anime said, what do you think of the Mooer preamp pedal? Can they replace a small tube amp? So you're probably talking about these preamp paddles. So if you guys remember, on Instagram and Facebook, I posted, hey, help me pick 4 of the 10, and I'll pick one and I'll review them. Mooer reached out and said, hey, would you review them all? They wanted to send me all 10. I said, absolutely not. Do not send me 10 of these things. I mentally cannot go through 10 of these things, and I'm glad. I had an instinct behind that, and I'll explain right now. So I'm going to do a review of them, and we'll do a giveaway, okay, with some of them. I'm going to give like 3 or 4 of them away. I'll get rid of most of them. I've decided one I like. I'm not going to tell you which one, and I'm going to keep it. My issue with it is this. For $100, it's a really interesting and cool concept. I'm really behind it. But there's 10 of them, and so if you buy all 10, $1,000, you can buy a really nice product for $1,000 that is way beyond what this is. So the problem with these is simple. There's 10 different ones, but their variation between each one is minor. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's my negative right off the bat. That's the only thing I want to say that's negative, is when I was playing them and I'm going through them, after I got through like 3 of them, I forgot what the first one sounds like because they're not that dramatically different considering they're supposed to be different amps. So quality, I think they're cool. There's a couple things about them that I think that's really interesting and unique. And there's some functions on here I don't even understand that I think are when I say I don't understand, I mean I don't understand how they got it to work that cool, right? It's really good. But so that's what I think of them. I'm going to do the review. I'm working on that right now. I was supposed to upload it on Wednesday. I forget what day it was this week, but one day this week I didn't release a video, and that was the video I didn't do. And it's because I want to really give you guys some really good information, and I want to make sure it's helpful, because I think the problem with these are you got to figure out which one you need and buy one. So that's my recommendation. If you get one, and that's why I said they gave me 5. I like one. I'm going to keep one and give you guys the opportunity to win 4 of them. And thank you for Mooer for sending them to me, right? That was really cool. They were really cool.
All right. We've got a question from Ed. Ed asked, is money better spent on a custom guitar build or a top-tier production model? And I am asking because I've seen you go through the frustration of the custom guitar and the shenanigans, over the years. So,
yeah. Well, he already knows my answer. It's easy. I have ordered Well, first of all, I've built myself a couple custom guitars. I have ordered a custom guitars and basses, at least a dozen. I've paid for custom guitars and basses, mostly basses, but a lot of custom guitars too. My experience with custom guitars is not a very good experience every time. It's because when you dream up a guitar, I learned it the hard way after doing it too many times with too many different companies. When you dream up a guitar and you get it, you'll never be able to anticipate everything.
Yeah.
Right? It's like somebody when they have a custom house built and they move into it and they said, I dreamed up the perfect house, but now that I'm living in it, I wish I would have. And that's what happens with guitars. You get this custom guitar and then you're actually where you should be happy because it's 80 to 90% perfect. You're actually focused on the fact that because it was supposed to be custom and perfect, it feels less perfect. Does that make sense? Right? So that's why I think artist guitars sometimes are funny because they have to go through 12 prototypes. What I tell everybody with custom guitars is the only way to, I think, to get a custom guitar right for most of us is you're going to have to order one, pay for it, get it, make notes, change it, order another one, right? And maybe by the second or third one you get it right. So I think that whole theory that if I order one guitar and it's perfect, I'll always be happy is flawed because the only way to do that is to have a couple attempts at it.
Yeah, and I've seen that idea fail more times than it's been successful. I mean, I've seen guys when they've ordered the guitar and they've ordered in a specific color, but that's about it. But everybody else I've known that's ordered the guitar to their spec, how they want it, ends up just utter failure and them getting rid of the guitar and buying production model.
Yes, exactly. Spoiler Man says, "Hey, do you prefer Fender or Gibson?" I don't prefer either. My preferences in guitars is based on what I've touched and fell in love with.
Yes.
And those are the brands that are presented to you over and over again. So no, if anything, I'm constantly trying to find a brand that's not Fender or Gibson that I can fall in love with. I'm about to work with G&L and try some of their guitars. And I told them, my love is for the shape of that guitar. It's not the Fender brand or the style. And same with Gibson, right?
It's how it's going to feel when you're playing it, when you're holding it, and regardless of the brand.
Yes. So no. I've said this before. I think sometimes when I think of a perfect guitar, I actually think of a Schechter guitar, where it's shaped like a Fender and comfortable for me. The neck is comfortable, and it's got that mahogany neck and body and arched top and Gibson kind of fuller-bodied sound with humbuckers. But I don't prefer the colors and styles they use, right? So, and I can't validate a $3,000 custom shop from them, because of all the reasons I told you before. So that's what kind of happens. Schechter is a good brand. So Sean W said Schechter's a good brand. They're my buddy Joe. You guys all know Joe if you've watched this channel for any length of time. Joe's got two Schechters amongst a pile of Les Pauls, and he says he calls the Schechters Gibson killers because he says they sound great. And he doesn't have the Schechters with EMGs. He has the Seymour Duncans and stuff. And I agree with that. Right? It's funny to me that Schechter hasn't addressed that's the market for me is a person who likes Fender style guitars but loves Gibson Les Pauls. It's a Reese's Pieces, man.
Yeah. And I think probably one of my favorite guitars was the Schechter C1 Elite Exotic. And
right.
So, and again, I keep going back to, I'm like, I probably should just find one of those again and just buy that and play it.
This is a good question because I like it. This is Cesario, I'm going to say that's what it is. Phil, is it hard to find an acoustic? Why is it hard to find an acoustic that's not an acoustic electric? That's simple because electronics and acoustics are very cheap. All you have to do is, right? So it's an easy thing to manufacture, but you can command so much more money, right? I mean, think about it logically for a second. What do you think a junk preamp that they stick in those acoustics cost? I mean, right? It's dollars. I mean, nothing, right? It's junk. So, but acoustic guitar, and a cheap acoustic guitar almost bumps $100 for putting electronics in it. So if you could put a $10 electronic in it or a $20, let's give them credit. It's $20.
Yeah.
I mean, I can buy them for $20, so we know they can't be paying that much. But $20, you put a $20 piece of equipment in a guitar, and you get to command $100 more on it in the end user, and that's a minimum. So that's why. Plus, they figure you get 2-for-1 customer. They figure it's easier for the retailer to convince the acoustic player to buy acoustic electric, right? And the acoustic electric player already wants it. So it's an easier merge of sale, right? So you don't have to worry about losing a customer. So that's why they do it. So there you go.
Here we go. Matt asks, that's his name.
Right.
Hi, Phil. Have you ever bought a pedal, got home, and realized you already have one?
No. No, it's never happened to me. It sounds like it should because I have a crazy amount of pedals. But no. No, the only close thing I have had help over is I buy the same pedals. I sell them and then get them again. That's the closest. Brian wants to know, Phil, will you ever buy a Kiesel? My problem with Kiesel is the same as with GNL and everybody else. I can't buy the unknown. You know what I mean? I do not want to buy a guitar, and I don't care if they have 30-day return policy. I do not want to buy a guitar and then box it up. Wait 3 months for it, get it, box it up, be out all that money the whole time, ship it back. That just sounds like a not fun experience for me.
All on a guess.
All on a guess. And I was just in San Diego, and Kiesel is closed on the weekends. They're closed on Saturday. You know what? If Jeff Kiesel ever hears anything, if you guys want to spread the word, that is the dumbest thing ever, Jeff Kiesel. I was in San Diego, and if I would have been able to walk in your shop and try a couple guitars on a Saturday, I would have bought one. Right? I know it because all I want to do is feel the necks and stuff and just make sure. So I think they really need to think about that. A Saturday is a great day for that shop to be open in San Diego, when most of the time I go to San Diego 2-3 times a year on the weekend because it's 115. I want to go where it's 72. Right?
Yeah.
And so, but yes, so I like the quality brands, but I'm not buying something I can't touch first and get an idea of. Even if I have to order it after I touch that one. So there you go. Sean W. says Kiesel shows up at NAMM, I believe. Yes, they do. And I've picked up some Kiesels at the NAMM show as well. But, it's
hard in that environment to get a very good idea on what it sounded like.
If almost every decision, me personally, not like a shop or anything, every personal decision I've ever made playing something at NAMM and ordering it was a bad decision because you just can't,
yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's so, you understand how loud NAMM is. It is the most ridiculous amount of volume of noise.
Yep. And it's the opposite, if you've never been there, it's the opposite of what you think. You think because it's a trade show and there's dealers there, that when you walk up and you pick up these guitars off these walls, they're going to be set up perfectly. They're going to be there to sell you. They're usually chipped, actions a mile high off, out of tune. There's baby goop all over them from the 50 other people who just touched it and doesn't wash their hands.
We carry copious amounts of hand sanitizer.
I literally have hand sanitizer hanging from belt loops on my pants, and yeah. It's cool to see everything. You touch a little bit there,
yeah.
Right? But it's not an intimate arrangement in which, if you've ever been to a Guitar Center on a Saturday on a Memorial Day sale or whatever, where every kid around in the neighborhood is just going crazy, add alcohol to that and put it on 10, and that's the NAMM show.
I mean, it's in the convention center, so imagine it, times 100 in size. The volume's the same
or louder.
I can't pronounce these names. Something 88. First impressions on your PRS 594.
Oh, I love it. Now, I had played the 594 double cut, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Paul Reed Smith guys, maybe you're interested in the story, I don't know. When I did the 10 guitars under $1,000 video, which was a colossal, horrible, absolutely the worst video I've ever done. So when I did that video, they were the only company to really reach out to me in any way, shape, or form, and they said, hey, would you want to review one of? So they sent me a standard single cut or double cut, whatever, an S2 to check out, and then they shipped me that thing. And they said, hey, and I played it. I loved it. It was just really expensive, and I couldn't justify it. And so what ended up happening was, and I'll just tell you guys the story because maybe it's important. I don't know. I loved it, and it had to go away. Right, I didn't get to keep it. We had to sell it. Right, they gave me an opportunity to buy it at a smoking price, and I just didn't have the money. So what I ended up doing was selling it and making a little money, right, and putting that into the channel. I thought that was a better spent money to put the money into the YouTube channel. I think that's when I bought my first camera or whatever. But anyways, you actually, if you watch my videos, I think you start noticing the quality changes right after that video because I took the profits from that guitar and started doing better YouTube stuff. Anyways, hold on one second. Oh. So anyways, the important part of the story is I didn't get to keep that guitar, and I really, really loved it. And so what ended up happening with that video was I ordered the Wheels Easy guitar, the Gelvin guitar. And I paid $1,000, and then Gelvin went out of business, so I lost $1,000. And so I didn't get a guitar out of that deal, right? I was going to give that guitar away. It was like a big deal for me. So my wife, being awesome and stuff, right? When I was telling her all this stuff, she told me that I really should get the 594. That it's, that it was something I really liked, and that situation kind of bummed me out. So that's how come I got it. I love it. I knew going in I was going to love it. I had played them at the NAMM show in the private booth with Paul, and I had also played the single cut or double cut version. So it's a great guitar. It's cool. Next question. This is from Nathan Dillard. Cheap alternatives to the POG from Electroharmonix. Okay, that's a great question. There's a couple products out there like the POG, Dylan, but I'm going to tell you wholeheartedly the POG is the best one. Right? There are products that are more expensive than the POG that are as good or better, but cheaper stuff, buy a used POG. I done the same thing as you. I tried a bunch. I A/B'd them to no end. There's a bunch of stuff by companies like Mooer and all these off-brand companies that make really good stuffs that are good versions of it. But when it comes to technology like that, buy a used POG. Just that's how you want to do it, and you'll find them. Right, a good deal on one, and that's what I highly recommend. And that was my experience. I couldn't find a product that was as good or better, cheaper.
Here we go.
Yep.
This is from Josh. Is the TS-808 reissue worth buying if you have the TS-9? Why do you see the 808 more on boards than the TS-9?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah. And I know you're big into those pedals, so
yeah. There's if you read the history of the TubeScreamer, obviously the 808 was first, the TS9 came later. There's a bunch of technical reasons why the 808 is supposed to be sweeter sounding. I guess maybe to my ear the 808 was slightly better. I choose and use the TS9 by Ibanez because the 808 by Ibanez, the foot switch is really annoying to me. If you catch it on the side, it pushes in but doesn't click the button. So for that reason, I use the Maxon OD808 pedal because I prefer the switch and I like the quality of it. So, to me, the TS9 and the 808 are very similar to the point where I don't know if I could detect them if you were A-B'ing them with a guitar. But when I'm playing, I feel like the 808 has a slightly smoother, less high-end attack, which I prefer that sound over the TS9. But I use the TS9 a lot as well. But I prefer my Maxon OD808 to the TS9. And that's saying a lot because, the Ibanez guys have been way cooler to me than the Maxon guys as overall. And the Maxon guys are fine, but I'm just saying, so that's a very unbiased opinion considering I have a better relationship with one company over another. Let's see. Next question. There are 567 of us hanging out. I appreciate you guys hanging out with us Saturday. I know it's kind of
Well, if you're in Arizona, it's too hot to do anything anyway. So.
Watchman4U says Maxon made Ibanez pedals, didn't they? Yeah, that's a whole long story we can't cover in a short video like this. But yes, Maxon was the original, one of the original manufacturers for Ibanez, and that deal. And and so you can honestly, everybody's gonna have an opinion about TS9s. My opinion of TS9s is very bland. Right? In other words, I think a lot of them, even the knockoffs, sound a lot alike. I could be happy with any TS9 type pedal for the most part. I found very few of them that are really bad. Even the Joyo one, which is down there, is fine. If you saw, we did a live feed with Lawrence, and he even said, it was pretty good. So even though some people kind of have a hierarchy to them, in quality, to me they're kind of all the same. Some are slightly better and some are worse, but not to the point where I can't own any of them. Justin said, could you please answer Sean W.'s question? Okay. What do you think about the Floyd Rose 1000 series? Same spec, just made in Korea, I believe. Oh, good question. So to answer that question, yes, slightly better than the license, right? Still, just like I said before, like a broken record, not only do I still prefer the German ones, I still prefer the old German ones. The 1000s are better. And like I said, anytime you're around a Floyd Rose type bridge, okay, everybody has different issues, right, with them, and right in respect. But what I suggest everybody is turn the fine tuners, turn them. You can tell the quality of that bridge. I mean, like I said, the 1000s, I can turn those down to almost to the bottom, and they're better, so better. But still, they get rough. They're not machined as well. They are as close to the Germans as I think you can get. And I wouldn't suggest upgrading from the 1000 to the German one unless you really think you need to. But if I'm picking, I'm still going to pick those German ones. The Schaller ones that the German factory builds, there's what it is? There's just no absence of quality, right? It's like they have one kind of quality. It's perfect, right? And I found very, very few to know. And in fact, I've never found an example of a bad German Floyd Rose. They're always machined perfectly and nicely. So the 1000, it definitely is better. That's why it's slightly more money. I would highly recommend it. But if you were going to go from the license and you're thinking to the 1000, I would just hit that German one. Because like I said, the great thing about the German one is once you buy it, you'll never have to buy it again. And even maybe some components, they've replaced those components, but never the bridge. It's this fantastic product. So, there was a good question. It jumped. I'm sorry, guys, when it moves. I'm sorry. Somebody put... Oh, here it is. Michael Larson said, what do you think of the 2-Rock amps? I've played a bunch of the 2-Rock amps. I think the cleans on them are fantastic. I think there's a real consistency with people who play and own 2-Rock amps. They'll tell you. The cleans on them are almost unbeatable. They're fantastic. Like a Fender, but fuller and bigger and smooth. But the distortions are okay. But what I've learned from them is the distortions are really good turned up. There are certain amps out there that just are not forgiving for turning down. I don't mean bedroom playing. I mean like on stage volume. You got to get them going. And I think that shows. John Mayer plays arenas, right? So he 2-Rocks and Dumbles and giant Fender amps and now 100-watt, Paul Reed Smith amp. He plays big amps because he's 30 feet from his amp on stage, right?
In a wide open area.
Yeah, so the problem for the rest of us is even on a stage, if you're 4 feet from your amp on a stage, you cannot be cranking that thing and so 2-Rocks are great, but they are a pro level amp that needs some pro level volume behind it. So, and I've never messed with one with attenuation to know if that works, but the quality on them are very good, especially clean, and they take pedals well too. There is. Okay, next one is. Oh, let's scroll down. Trying to catch up. Sometimes they jump, and they jump really fast. Oh, somebody just sent a cool question.
Here you go. I got a question for you.
Okay.
Hamed asked this question, and it was kind of funny because we were doing this last week. How does the Peavey 6505 compare to the 5150 LBX, sound-wise?
Okay, so we were A-Bing them last weekend.
Yeah, we were playing
We
them.
were actually doing that. After we did our podcast, we sat there forever. So I'll answer with this. I really was impressed when we were A-Bing them how the 6505 sounded, right? I thought it sounded good.
That noise was gone.
The noise was gone, right? So we were doing the new one. It was very minimal, if not there at all. And so it was very good. Highly recommend it. However, I'll let you give Ralph's opinion in a second. I just want to point out what ended up happening is right now, the LBX is in the room and the 6505 is in the hallway. And I've said that before, and you guys laugh when I say in the hallway. In my hallway, immediately outside my office, there's, what do you call it? Like a
desk or a...
Yeah, there's a counter. Like
it's not like a desk. It's not a dresser.
Yeah, it's a counter. It's built into the house. Anyways, it's like a big place where I can put a ton of stuff. So it's like almost another gear storage area. So when stuff goes there, it's the first step to walking out the front door of the house, right? It's like it's going. So the 6505 mini head is great, but I preferred the LBX in the end.
Yeah, the 65 it was good. I remember I was impressed by it.
Yeah.
Until we played the LBX.
Yeah,
and the LBX just had a little bit more than the 6505.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's because when you're running that much saturation, they're so saturated. It's such a metal amp, right? I mean, it's so saturated that the clarity of the LBX, that's what it is. You hit those big chords, like when right, when you're playing power chords and big chords and you hit them, they're articulate. And the 6505 is not as articulate. And so that's not a sound thing because they sound very similar. And I actually think the 6505 has it's in its own way, a better sound, right? They both have a sound that's equally great. But I was drawn to how clean the articulation of the notes were on the LBX.
Yeah, and we were running them through different cabinets. We ran them through the 412, the 112. So we were trying to give them fair fights. And again, it wasn't that the 6505 was bad. It was just that the LBX was a little bit better.
Yes. Okay, so I want to answer a question, but I also want to make a comment about one. So Watchman for you said, what pedal to get that Gorilla amp tone? I wish I could answer the question. I've actually come across that pedal, believe it or not. There's some bad pedals out there. So I will. That reason I want to mention that is because I want to put it in the index later because I want to look because I know I probably own or have owned some pedals that are just horrendous.
I've owned Gorilla amps. Does that count?
Yeah. Jeremy Blackwood said Line 6 DT25 or Blackstar HT20. So which would I pick? The DT25 for sure. The DT25 is a very underrated amp in its sound quality. It's fantastic. I keep thinking about buying another one, a DT25, the head. I had one for a brief time, and I really, really liked it. It was, I think it was the closest thing we've ever got in an industry to a digital, even though there's really no digital in it. It's all relays in that amp. But really to a solid state marriage of tube, right? That was really good. I think that's one of the closest amps out there. But I think even though it had Bogner's name on it, I think the Line 6 name just killed it, right? So that's what happens. The irony is the companies like Line 6 and Joyo and stuff, like this new Klons amp, they're the companies that are courageous enough to try the crazy idea to put it out there, and then we just ridicule them because it's like they're trying to do better, and we're like, no, you're just the cheap stuff. Shut up and go away, right? But they're the ones that really try the most. So DT25. And they're probably out of stock now, but Sweetwater was clearancing them because I was looking. I was like, oh, I think it was like $6.99 because they were $9.99, $6.99. I think I need that, but out of stock. They said they're coming back, but I got a feeling they're not because I'm sure they were clearance out what they had. Okay, next question is, and we're at the 10-minute warning mark, so we have 10 minutes left, and we'll try answer as many questions as we can that are good. We're looking for the good ones.
All right, quick question, Phil.
Sure.
This is from the Jacob Sharpia? Whatever, Jacob. Phil, what pot should I use in a HSS Strat? 500K or 250K?
You can stick with 250K, right? That's real common. If you have a humbucker and two single coils, the reasoning for that, my logic when wiring up guitars has always been this: the 250Ks will do less effective damage when I say, and I'll explain that in a second, to the humbucker than the 500s will do to the single coils. So what I mean by that is, imagine if the potentiometers, the 250K and the 500K, the 500Ks will add more highs, right? And the 250Ks will restrict those highs. I personally feel a humbucker in a bridge position will not suffer from a lack of getting its high frequencies out, right? It's a pickup that's warmer and it's in a very bright spot. Where those single coils, as soon as you put 500Ks, they're going to get more bright sound. And usually, no matter what the single coil is, you're trying to warm it up. So my experience, 250K is fine. In fact, anytime somebody adds a humbucker to a Strat scenario, I just say leave everything alone, right, and just put the humbucker in there. Even because the next question is like the capacitor. Do you want to change that? And I have wired up a lot of Strats where if I run one of the tone knobs to the humbucker, I will change that capacitor to a 0.22 and maybe put a 0.47 on the other two single coils. There's all kinds of schematics like that. Fender does that stuff. I believe the new Tim Shaw HSSs use a system like that as well. But yeah, leave them 250K, and I would leave the potentiometers alone, and I would leave the capacitors alone. And try that first, and then if you have issues, maybe mess with it.
All right, Phil. Jamie asks, best cheap single coils, P90s. So if you're going to put single coils in your guitar,
right?
Which ones would you go with?
But you said best cheap ones?
Cheap single coils, yes.
Do that question again.
Best cheap single coils, P90s. Single coils / P90s.
The best cheap ones I've installed in guitars for people and enjoyed were from Guitar Fetish. You're right. They were fine. So I would try those. Definitely love those Lawlers though. Lawler makes some and they're fantastic. But for inexpensive ones, Manga Held, sure. Manga Held says, "Hey Phil, as far as I know, you are originally a bass player." Yeah, I'm still a bass player, right? What do you think about Warwick basses made in Germany? Well, I love Warwick basses. Me and Ralph have both owned a lot of Warwick basses over the years. I love my Warwick basses. I moved away from them for a while to the Fender Jazz Deluxe Custom that I have. And I missed my Warwicks for many years, and I was about to buy a Warwick 2 months ago, but long story short, I'm going to be going to Germany soon, so I plan to kind of check out Warwick when I'm there, so I'm getting another Warwick, so that's happening. In fact, like I said, I almost bought one or two just recently, so I like Warwick. Ralph?
Oh yeah, I definitely do like the Warwicks. Think about getting another one because I have the Fender 5-string bass, and I'm just not liking it.
Yeah.
So it's just, and again, it's just the low B.
Fender 5-strings, no go.
So and now I'm like, might as well just get rid of it, go back to Warwick because I've always liked the Warwicks. So, but yeah, if you're curious, I'm looking at the 5-string Streamer.
Jeremy says, "Hey, no, sorry. Well, we'll do Jeremy too. Jeremy, advice on how to stop rattling Gibson Les Paul pickup cover, pickup on sympathetic harmonic to outer pickup ring." This is a tricky question, Jeremy. So you're saying that basically your humbucker pickup cover, the pickup, it's rattling? It's going to sound weird, but did you install that pickup? Or here's why. I've actually had that scenario happen. So here's a funny story. Not once, not twice, but almost a half a dozen times. I've had people bring in guitars with humbuckers, and they're making a sound, right? And they're like, it's driving them crazy. And I would pull it out every time. There would be a screw or an Allen wrench or something stuck to the bottom when they put it in it magnetically, and it was rattling in there. So I know that sounds like a silly thing. It's almost like, hey, turn off your computer, turn it back on to fix it. But that's the first thing I think of when you say that. So, and then this one, me and Ralph answer this question. This David says, "Hey Phil," and now Ralph. "Hey Phil and Ralph, did Fender get it right with the BassBreaker series?" You go first. Did they get it right with that series?
No.
Okay, why?
My problem with the BassBreakers was every one of them sounded different, so it wasn't like a volume thing. It was just, I don't know, it was like too much variation between the amps. Even though they all had the same name, I felt like there was so much variation, and that's what kind of threw me off.
Yeah, I think it was I've said this before, it was a big mistake to do it the way they did it. I think they had potentially a great idea, and here's why I say it, and I think a lot of us agree. If you've been to a guitar store and you tried the BassBreaker series, you know the frustration. They are all great amps, and they all have something to offer, and you just kind of wish they would have just made two of them, a low wattage one and a higher wattage one, and just called it a day. The 7-watt sounds fantastic, but no effects loop, no reverb. The 15-watt has reverb and effects loop, but it doesn't let you switch channels. the 18, doesn't sound like the others. I think if they were smart, which we'll see what they do, they will repackage that product line into a 2-product line, which is just give us a 15-watt that maybe switches down to 7 watts, has reverb and effects loop, right? Just give it all to us in one package, and then make a 40-watt that switches down to 18, and just make those 2 amps. But my guess is they'll eventually just scrap the line out, or slim it down somehow. But who knows? Okay. Let's see. Next one. I don't even know. This is a question I don't even understand. Alpha James 33 says, what do you think of the new Chinese Gibsons like the Fusion SG? Will it damage the branch? I didn't even know. They have a Chinese Gibson out there? I had never heard of that. Has anyone else heard of that? When I put the index in, please comment. I haven't heard that Gibson has actually put the Gibson logo on anything other than an American product as far when it comes to the electric guitar line. So, so I don't know about that, but I can hypothetically answer the question, which is, what do I think of it? I think Gibson and Fender should get rid of Epiphone and Squire. I've been saying that forever and ever and ever and ever. Squire and Epiphone should go away. Gibson should just make a guitar from $100 all the way up, and Fender should make a guitar from $100, right? Because no one believes that that's not Fender and Gibson making those guitars, right? Does it make sense? We know an Epiphone is a Gibson, but it's not a Gibson made in the Gibson factory. Well, isn't that enough? Why can't we just have 2 kinds of Gibsons? A Gibson made in the actual factory, and it happens to be made in the USA, and that's fine, but it's made in the Gibson factory, and then an OEM, an outsourced Gibson product. And Fender makes a Fender factory product, and then an outsourced Fender product. And either way you buy the brand, right? And there it is. And the reason I believe that is because, you can buy a T-shirt that says Fender and Gibson on it. I know, I have many of them. And they're made in China. Yeah. Right? So you can put Gibson on a Chinese T-shirt, but you can't put Gibson. And you can put Gibson on a Chinese mug and a Chinese keychain, but you can't put it on a Chinese guitar. It makes no sense. And if the argument is that putting the brands on Chinese products devalues the brand, well then, you know what? That doesn't make any sense, because they're already doing that. They're making an outsized product, but they put a slightly different brand on it, and we all have to pretend that it's not them making it.
Just because it says Epiphone, not Gibson, we've got to understand that it's okay that the Epiphone came from China.
Yes. And Epiphone and Squire, I think at this point, with the educated consumer market out there, we don't need that anymore. We don't need a sub-product line. Just I wish every company would either decide to do one of 2 business models at this point. Either like Paul Reed Smith, either make all the guitars and call them all Paul Reed Smiths, and no weird PRS, SE, nothing. That's just all Paul Reed Smiths, or don't make cheap stuff. Yeah. Just, I'm sick of the eat your cake and have it too idea that I'm going to make my product and then I'm going to make a knockoff of my product somehow. So either I wish everybody would just pick a side and say, okay, like Rickenbacker. We make Rickenbacker. If you buy Rickenbacker, this is what you get, right? You get, and speaking of Warwick does that. Warwick used to make a product line that was separate than Warwick, and now all Warwick. Yeah,
it was a rock bass.
Right, but now it's Warwick rock bass. So they say Warwick on them. So Warwick has done that. Warwick makes basses that are $8,000, and they have a bass that's $299. And anyone who's been in this guitar community for more than 5 minutes knows which one's which. Yeah. That's my whole point. You can sit there and say that it confuses the market, but I don't think it takes more than, an hour hanging out at your local guitar store to figure out that an Epiphone $499 is different than a $5,000 Gibson, not because Epiphone and Gibson logos, but because of how they're constructed and made. And and in the idea that one has lacquer and one has like hand wired pickups and whatever, and one is mass produced more. So yeah, I think we're done with all that stuff, right? You know, and I came to that conclusion many times as I have seen people buy Squiers and then put Fender logos on them, and then the argument is, actually, I have a story. Right? This is story time. We're going to tell it, and you know the story.
Okay.
I wanted a 7-string Fender guitar. He's laughing. This is a good story. We'll end with this story, and I'll take 2 more questions. I wanted a Fender 7-string Strat. I just decided I wanted it. So I contacted Fender and said, call Custom Shop, and said, hey, I want a Fender 7-string Strat. I'm a Fender Custom Shop dealer. I want this guitar. And they said, no, we can't do it because we've never made a 7-string guitar before. There's no templates or anything to go off of. And I said, are you kidding me? You made one in 1984 with the Maestro. You guys, you want to see the ad? And I emailed them the ad of a Fender ad in Guitar Magazine of the 7-string Strat. I'm like, really? And they said, okay, no joke. I wish this was a joke. 2 or 3 days later, they contact me and they go, hey, we talked about it. We can make it for you. Dealer cost would be $7,000 and we need 18 months. And I'm like, oh, cool. That's the I don't want to do it price and timeline, right? That's the right, because I'm not paying. I go, so $7,000 on a Custom Shop guitar dealer cost would mean, because Custom Shop's almost double mark. So you mean that if I was telling a customer this, should be quoting $13,000 as a price tag for this 7-string Stratocaster?
In a year and a half.
In a year and a half. I'm like, sure. So here's what I did. I bought a Squier 7-string, because they made those, and I took it down to a friend who also owns a guitar shop, a manufacturing shop, and had them strip it all down, right? I refretted it with new frets, brought it down to them. They repainted it, right? They did all the stuff, and here's why the story's funny. So they contact Fender for me, because they are licensed, certified warranty center for Fender, and they say, hey, we have this Squier, we're refinishing it, right? Because they refinished it, redid everything, and new tuning keys, new pickups, and they go, and we need a Squier logo. And we have pictures of the original Squier logo and serial number, and Fender's like, we can't print you one. We can't send you one. And it's just a water decal, if you guys know. Anyways, this long story short, they couldn't get a Squier logo. So I go, oh, well, so I don't want the headstock to be bare. And they go, well, I mean, we have, Fender logos that we can just print. So they printed a Fender logo and we put Fender on it. Okay. So the irony of it is my point on it was my friend, who's an attorney that Ralph and I know, I tell him what happens and I go, yeah, I hope I don't get in trouble. And he says, that's an interesting thought. He goes, Fender owns Squier. So what's the legality of right, of them? You're putting their logo on their other type product. He goes, it's a trick. He goes, it's tricky. He goes, you're technically changing the brand, but you're not. And that was my argument at the time. That's when I started thinking, going, yeah, right. It is, because it says Squier by Fender. So it already had a Fender on the logo. It just wasn't predominant. So it was a weird thing to happen. So back to my point originally, which is I think Gibson and Fender should just own up and say we make all price points and be honest and change the headstocks. Like I said, I don't know about you guys. Chime in what you think out there. But me personally, the only downfall to Gibson doing that is the second Gibson was to make a Chinese Gibson with their headstock. Yeah. That basically rebrand the Epiphones as Gibsons. Yeah, I would get rid of all my Gibsons right now and just buy Epiphones. The only reason I don't buy Epiphones is I don't like the shape of the headstock. I don't even have a problem with the name. I just don't like that shape. To me, the Les Paul is that iconic headstock, right? Squiers, I own Squiers because the headstock's right. If the headstock was different, I wouldn't buy a Squier either. So aesthetically, I like the aesthetics to look right. 644 of us hanging out, so we'll go a few extra minutes because there's a lot of us, okay? And we'll do a couple questions. A couple last ones. Let's see. Next question. Whoops. How do you find it? Somebody just sent me a question, but I don't know how to see it. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to find a question. I know we're going dead on the air. It's not always good, but somebody just sent me a question about their other question, and I can't find their other question. This thing is wacky. Okay, I'm sorry. I can't find it. But Some of you guys do. The question is, some of you guys do super chat, and so I answered the question. But sometimes it disappears, and I don't understand where it goes. Right? It was at the top and it was gone. So if that happens, I promise I'll email you back later and make sure you get or open next week with it. So, Spoonwood. Spoonwood says it would destroy the brand. Bad idea for resale. Destroy the brand. You mean like if they were to that's what they say. They say it will destroy the brand. But then I laugh when I go, okay. So
it's not destroying it now. And we all know that
But thing, that's my point is that we all know what it is.
Yeah.
We're all pretending. It's Gibson and Fender are pretending. They're pretending that they don't make Squier and Epiphone, that they're not connected with it. It's a separate brand. And if you don't think if you think I'm wrong, they are separate brands. They are separate websites. They run them separately. But when I wrote checks, I wrote a check to one company, right? So Gibson sold me my Epiphones and Fender sold me my Squiers.
And you didn't write a check to Epiphone,
right? You don't write a check to Epiphone. But the point is that my point is that it's we know what it is. We know an Epiphone is an import Gibson. So just be Gibson import. The logic of that is there's as many business models that disprove what they're doing as prove it, right? In other words, there's many guitar companies making brands from top to bottom, like Ibanez making prestige guitars and then $99 guitars and branding them all the same.
Yes.
Right? So I'm not saying they should do it. I'm just saying that's my thoughts is that here's where it would also business would correct itself. If the answer is that if Fender put Fender on the Squier brands, that people would buy that instead of Fenders, well, doesn't that say a lot? Right?
Yeah.
Doesn't that just tell you so you're literally telling me the argument that you would have to make to win me over, because I like to change my mind too, is that you're telling me that if Fender put the Fender logo on the Squier guitars, no one would buy actual Fenders?
Well, and with that way of thinking, that means that the Mexican Strat should be outselling the American Strats.
Right. And then actually back to that point, it also would mean that then the brand is worth more than the product, right? Mm-hmm. And they do believe that. And so that, right? So my point on that is if that's the theory that if they put their brand on lower priced products, that's all we'll buy. Well, then that says a lot about those low price products being really good, doesn't it? So, Tim says, what did you find that was better or as good as G&L? Lots of guitars. I actually just did a review of the Dane Electro. It was fantastic. That guitar was as good as my American Strat. Somebody even commented that they're like, I don't really think he believes that because he still has the American Strats, which is funny because I was like, my issue was I just redid my American Strat. So I actually liked, where's it at? It's on the other side. I actually liked this Dane Electro lipstick pickup 84 guitar so much that the day I reviewed it and checked it out, I actually ripped the pickups out of my American Strat because I couldn't take them anymore and put in new humbuckers to change the sound because I just preferred the Dane Electro. So now when I'm playing single coils, I'm playing the Dane Electro and now I'm playing humbuckers in my Strat. So I really liked it. That was one guitar. And to answer Tim's question, that was one of the guitars that I think are as good as G&L right now. So there's actually more. I'm doing a whole series, so you'll see all that. Okay, last two questions because we went really over. There is... Okay, so Alpha Jam 33 says, I see in reviews that Chinese Gibsons have horrible bridges. Again, I think if you're Chinese Gibsons, those are Chipsons, right?
No, it's a 40. I looked it up. It's a $499 SG,
right?
Which is the Fusion SG,
right?
So which I'm gonna guess at $499 it's gotta be made in China, but I don't
know. I don't know.
It's labeled a Gibson, so
I don't know. We'll have to look it up.
And again, no, if they have horrible bridges, they got to cut costs somewhere to get to $499.
Right. That's the no-brainer, right? I just bought it because I bought a car recently and I was laughing and I actually I thought the price was fantastic. I was excited, and then I went on a road trip, so I checked and it doesn't come with a spare tire. It comes with an inflation kit, and so
Our buddy Rob.
Yeah.
He had the Mustang Boss 302, and that was the same ways. They didn't give him a spare tire when he bought this crazy car. They gave him a can of inflated flat.
Yes. So, so when prices come down, they got to take things away. Okay, so here's a question. This is the last one before the last one. Okay, so tigerbait.com. I'm going to say tigerbait.com. Philip, any chance Reverend will send you a guitar to review? Would like to get your opinion on the double agent model. Yeah, Tiger, what happened with Reverend is I reached out to them and said, hey, I want to do a review of your guitars and compare it to a Mexican Strat or a Fender guitar and do a whole series. They took a little while, but they responded back and they said, we would love to do that. And we will have a person contact you. And then nobody contacted me. And then so I emailed them and said, hey, hey, I'm still in the series right now. What do you guys think? And I said, I'm thinking about stopping the NAMM show. And they said, great, stop by our booth if you want. And then it was like a really kind of a blow off, right? I was like, what did I miss something? So here's what I think happened, but I don't know. I think I asked them if they'd be interested in review. I think they checked out my channel and weren't interested. I think that's what happened, but I don't know. But it was a weird email. Like all of a sudden I was like, okay. So I was thinking about buying one and checking it out. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, that was a weird situation. I've had this situation happen now twice. It was Yamaha and them. Difference though, Yamaha contacted me and then kind of blew me off. These guys just, so I don't know. It's a weird thing of this, doing these reviews, is you talk to companies and some companies, they are really nice and they talk to you and then all of a sudden it's weird. It just gets weird. And I never know what exactly happens. So on the Reverend thing, they don't seem as interested as they were. So I'm not sure. So we'll see. And I just do that because I disclose everything that I'm doing with you guys. It's like a vlogging concept. Okay, last question. Here it is. Ready? I know, I'm trying to find a good one. Anything you see, Ralph? We want to end on a good question.
Someone asked us earlier if we believed in Bigfoot. Does that count? I believe in Sasquatch.
Okay, you guys are just putting so many weird questions.
All right, someone's saying that the Fusion SG is American made, so...
Okay, so good.
Which
We can end on that. The Fusion SG is American. Yeah, like I said,
it's
my understanding is if it says Gibson, it's made in the USA. It might have Chinese components, like pickups and bridge and stuff, and that's no different than what Paul Ray Smith's doing with the S2 series, where it's import parts on American guitar.
Well, I remember going back to the old comment that was it Gibson valued their name at $900, so there was no Gibson below $900.
Right.
So now it's $499 for a Gibson. So, yeah, we don't know. Again, we just found out about it.
Yes. But so good. That makes sense. Like I said, and somebody said something about a spare tire.
Yeah, his spare tire didn't come with a car.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to let you go now. I really appreciate it. 648 of us hanging out. I love that you guys took some time on a Saturday to do this. I like doing it on Saturday sometimes because Ralph gets to join me. We're doing because we come and we work on the podcast on Saturdays. I'd like to also tell you guys that I did that live summit last night with the Tone King, Robert Baker, Shane from In the Blues, Pixie Licks, and Jeff Diamond from Diamond Amps, and I had a blast doing that. I want to, if you guys didn't see that, I had a blast. It's 2 hours. We're just talking about some stuff. It was really cool, and I appreciate all of you that come on and hung out live with me last night doing that. That was late. Right? And then think about this. It was really late because those guys on the East Coast, it started at midnight, and then it went, for 2 hours, and then we talked until their time, 5 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, it was. So we gear talked for like 5-6 hours. So there you go. All right. As always, I want to thank all of you guys for your time and tell you to know your gear.